Well, build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. I want the chance. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Longbangers Extra Time, sponsored by Leith Spirits, and hello to our partners. When I say our partners, I'm not meaning like our other halves. I mean business partners, like not those that we're romantically involved with. I've never shagged a spirit before, I don't think. So,
no, still time.
Still time. Early days. Anyway, we're already planning on starting like that. The weekend Hibs is what we're going to look at.
Hey, I'm good as well. I'm calling.
Oh, aye, right enough. What shambles? I've taken one day off for hosting. I've forgotten what I'm doing with it. Colin, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Aye, good. John?
Good. Aye. What day is it? Because we're talking about stuff that we were doing with... Do you know what? It's thrown me off, actually. It's because it's Monday night when we record this, whereas normally it would be sort of, Sunday?
Sunday morning,
or even earlier. Aye, so... no, I'm good.
Good. Right. We'll get straight into it, I suppose. Well, actually, before we start, I should just remind everybody that we have two competitions running at the moment. So you can win a bottle of Leith Gin. If you go to our Instagram, you'll see the competition on there. Leith Gin, very nice. And also you can win 2 tickets for Hibs v Aberdeen. Now, I would imagine the majority of folk who subscribe will already be match-going supporters, and 2 free tickets probably sounds like something that will only be of much use. But you can donate them, so if you've got like a good cause or a couple of pals that you would want to take to the game, Colin's got his hand up there, then you can enter. All you have to do is find their tweet sort of announcing that the Bogdan episode was out on Twitter, and just retweet it, like it, and tag who you would want to take. So I think the weekend Hibs is sort of like a new look for us for Extra Time. We're just going to look back at the last week in the events and a couple of notable articles, etc., that have come up. So, John, I'll come to you first. You had sort of flagged before we started recording about an article in the Observer tonight, which with the Hibs Observer, not the Sunday paper. Which, by the way, the Sunday Observer is shite for Hibs content. So you better go into the Hibs Observer if you want to read about Hibs.
It's funny because I like the Guardian, but the Observer's just not as good. I prefer a Sunday Times. Care if I'm buying a Sunday paper?
Aye.
Even though it disagrees with my sort of political leanings, I still prefer the Sunday Times over the Observer. But I would pick the Guardian up over the Times during the week.
Do you notice that quite often people refer to the Guardian as the Grinny ad?
Aye, that's a private eye thing, I think.
Aye, it's like a nod to how many mistakes the Guardian make with like their typing and stuff like that.
Is that what it's?
Aye, that's where it comes from.
Do you know one of the things I enjoy about the Guardian is that it prints swear words in full? I really enjoy that.
It's all like Viz in that respect.
Aye, the big papers do, I think.
Aye, they trust you to be grown up with them, eh?
Yeah.
No.
I always thought it was like stupid with the star out one
within context.
Sorry, the star out one letter from it. So you have like F*CK.
Aye.
What's the fucking point in that? Just anyway, right. Observer, Hibs Observer, John. Talk us through what you read and what you want to talk about.
Excuse me. The article that I read tonight was, I think, is it Liam Price that writes for them? I've only just subscribed, so I'm not as familiar with the... Is it the authors? Is that what you would... Is that the journalist names? Journalist names as perhaps others would be. However, the one thing that I was interested about was some of the stats that were being quoted with regards to, I think it was on-ball value, and that was made up, if I remember correctly, the amount of things that you did that came off successfully in an attacking sense and things that you didn't do so well in a defensive area of the pitch. And I think the one notable thing that came out was that Lewis Miller is rated the highest amongst the Hibs players. And the cynic in me immediately started thinking, how can these, not that Lewis Miller was manipulating the stats, but how can these stats perhaps be misinterpreted?
You're talking stats padding, John?
Well, no, I'm not talking stat. Well, potentially. Because what I was thinking was, like, can this... Because I think the thing about, like, stats, people can point to stats and say, well, he's really good because he does X amount of OBVs, or on-ball values. whatever it happens to be. But we know from past experience and in the world of football that some players, like if they complete, like say, 100 passes, that looks great. But if it's 100 5-yard passes, it puts that different slant on it.
Mhm.
And I wondered what your thoughts were on the article and with regards to can that on-ball value be manipulated or misinterpreted in any way?
Well, I had never heard of on-ball value until tonight, right? So I'll be totally honest, this is new to me. But we obviously have looked into it, and the description given is it assesses the change in probability of a team scoring as a result of a player's action, taking into account factors such as location on the pitch, match context, e.g., set pieces versus open play, and pressure from the opposition. Needless to say, passes or dribbles which take Hibs closer to the opposition goal will add positive OBV, while giving the ball away in bad areas or making too many backward passes has a negative impact. So I think to answer your question there, John, I would take that into consideration. And if you had loads of sort of meaningless passes and added no value, it would probably be detrimental to your score. Colin, you look like somebody who would be desperate to talk about OBV. Like that's the sort of thing that would be close to your heart. What are you making of this so far?
Absolutely. This is like I'm thinking, can we go on the safe standing survey? No, I'm looking at the screenshot thing that they've got, and I'm looking at some of the metrics. And I'm thinking, what the fuck's that? Pressures, deep progressions. You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean? Like, how do you judge that? Like a pressure. I know what pressure is. So does that mean running up to somebody and putting pressure on them? How do you value that in a number? You know what I mean?
That's a good question.
I'm a wee bit like, what does it actually mean? And this is just like, see, so some of them are obvious, right? Aerial wins, fouls, successful dribbles, interceptions, although it says PADJ, interceptions. You know what I mean? So fair enough, they're all things that you can see and understand, but some of the other things I'm like, how do you measure that? Like how 14.4 measures on pressures and this percentile 76. That's Lewis Miller.
Yep.
But I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? So it's just stuff. It's just stuff that obviously means something. And maybe the article explains more. I started reading it. But I don't think it goes into that detail. I don't know. I just think it's like overcomplication.
How much do you think?
Meant to be a simple game.
How much do you think age plays a part in our interpretation of those results? Like, because I think we've come from a period where, like, even an older metric, if you like, was XG, and I still don't fully get XG, and I don't look at that after a game and go, well, our XG was this, and that was reflective of the game as a whole. I just go, well, we never scored, so we were shite.
It is funny though, because the XG on mine when it came out, it got ridiculed, but now I kind of understand it, and we do sometimes talk about it. So I guess, like, as much as I'm looking at that, going, what the fuck does that mean? It could be a year's time that we're going, his deep progressions were really impressive,
and his PADJs.
You know what I mean? Because it is, but XG was and still is dismissed by folk. But it does give you an idea, because it does give you an idea that, well, we should have scored more goals. We had, like, sometimes you'll come away from a game and go, we should have fucking battered them. But then you look at the XG and you go, well, the stats say we shouldn't have.
What you can say, though,
even,
without knowing, John, in depth to what each metric is, you can see for the way the graph is set out that it was certainly Miller's performance is good against the league average.
That's what I was going to say. Absolutely. Yeah.
And then his OBV sort of puts him as, I suppose, the most valuable Hibs player. So, John, the top five that they came out with, you had Lewis Miller number one. I'll give the scores, right? So his score was 3.25, Ellie Yuan 2.95, Martin Boyle 2.78, Jimmy Jego 2.32, and Joe Newell 1.82, making up the top five. Any surprises in there for you, John?
To be honest, I thought that Boyle was a little bit of a surprise, because if you were to look at a lot of like the forums and social media and what have you, that I think there's a bit of a consensus that he's not performing as well as he did before his injury, before that cruciate tear and missing the World Cup and what have you. But he's obviously still performing at a high level, but I don't know, Colin, how that compares amongst these across the league as an average. Have you got that information?
Of the Lewis Miller ones.
No,
So you
Martin
said
Boyle.
that you said
I've
Lewis
only got the
Miller
Lewis
was
Miller ones.
so yeah. I guess the question I'd ask with regards to Boyle then is that like it suggests that he's performing better than we would think that he was, and I wonder how that compares against players in his position across the league. I think as well, I was probably a wee bit more surprised that Neo's kind of he's not low down, but he's not as high as Lewis Miller. I think Joe Neo is kind of seen as a more creative player these days and more integral to the Hibs team. So to see him there kind of fifth in the rankings was a wee bit surprising, especially because if you've got a right back there that's higher ranked than a creative midfielder, that seems like there's something a wee bit off there.
I think the fact that Diego sits higher than you in that is the surprise. Like if you go on you trust your eyes when you're watching the games. I don't think there's been any time really this season where we've said Diego was more influential than Newell. Not from memory, right? We've not said that again. Not that he's not been effective or he's had good games, but I think we've generally been of an opinion that Newell's dragged us through some games and has been like a key player for us this season.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. What makes me wonder is the stats that are getting added together to come out with that number, the OBV number. Maybe they're more leaning towards a defensive minded thing, although then Yuan second, didn't he?
Yuan, you was 2-3 or Yuan and Boyle.
But they'll do a bit of tracking back in that position. So unless it's like pressures that are bringing the score up because they're pressing the fullback, in a defensive way and an attacking position. If that, I don't know. I'm just trying to think how that could possibly be, because I'm dubious of stats. I'm not saying there's no place for them. There is, but I think it's a bit football managerish. I think this is like the kind of shite they'll have in the background on Football Manager now. And
they definitely do. They have all this that you can look at on Football Manager. Definitely.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. And that might be how you do it in a computer game, but I guess in real life, like what we're saying there is that if you were playing this as a computer game, you'd be trying to sign Jimmy Jago instead of Joe Newell.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm dubious of the stats then.
Right.
Based on that, as my conclusion. It can't. But as I say, I think it must be. There must be stats out there that aren't included. That's where Newell's outperforming Jago, because he is outperforming him.
Does that not come back to like as much as and this is I think this is the minefield, the stats where and what Matty was saying about what your eyes see and what the stats are telling you. You have two players there that are completely different that you're trying to compare based on a score.
And that's why I'm saying there must be, that's what I'm thinking, there's metrics that are, this OBD must be, I'm thinking, more leaning towards putting pressure on somebody, getting interceptions, but maybe no picking a pass, taking a shot.
Mm-hmm. I suppose it's
the explanation I did say like that was like a factor in it, like how like advancing the team towards the goal, putting us in positions to score, improved your score. So it must be
back
a factor.
to the old argument, the Neil Lennon argument. I'll tell with my eyes, no with the stats. Whereas Lee Johnson was the opposite, and no taking off players, for example,
McGuinness.
Where he should have. Where everybody goes, he's obviously tired. And he's got still running as fast as still in the top percentile when they're running. So there's probably a blend in the middle of the two, because they were probably the extreme off. It's shite or it's brilliant, but there's somewhere in there is a use for it. I'm just no.
I think it gives you that.
Educated better on it.
Gives you that level of objectivity, doesn't it? So what you see with your eyes is subjective, and what the stats tell you is objective. So when you marry the two of them together, it can back up or dismiss, I suppose, what your eyes are telling you. I thought it was interesting anyway, and it'd be interesting to see how it develops over the season. But I thought it was good, or good, I don't know if that's the right word, but interesting that Miller came out top, because I thought he's had a cracking season. Obviously, he's been called up to the international squad. Do you see Miller as being one that might leave us for quite a bit of money further down the line?
Potentially. And I think this might be, I think one of his qualities, and the one that I was going to ask Colin about, was his dribbling percentages, because I think that's perhaps one of the flaws in his game, and I think that's perhaps one of the reasons why, and it's one of those things that we talk about from time to time, that there's certain reasons why certain players find themselves at Hibs rather than a higher level, because they do have those flaws. But if they can work on them, if they can improve them, then that's absolutely something that will
His dribbling is
earn a big transfer fee.
his successful dribbles are more than double the league average.
I think he's quite good with the ball at his feet. I wouldn't be surprised to see that. Or were you just using that as an example?
I think not so much the ball at his feet and driving with the ball, but his ability to take a player on and beat them. I think he finds himself kind of a bit clumsy and almost falling over the ball at that point.
Just powers through folk, doesn't he? That's his sort of. He doesn't rely on trickery. He's just like brute force, like just sort of plows through and hopes the person gets out his way.
He's above the league average in all these metrics, apart from progressions, deep progressions. Everything else is above it. Exactly. Don't know.
Well, I take it as taking the ball from deep and then driving forward with it, I would guess.
Or not passing it.
Yeah. I could be wrong, though. I'm just speculating.
So can we cover that point again about deep progressions and what it was like? Was that the one metric that he was below the league?
Yeah.
And is that how much do you think is that reflective of him trying to buy fouls? You know, the sort of Ryan Porteous or the Russell Anderson or the Stephen Presley type foul.
Yeah. Yeah, it's more like
in his own area.
He's a bit more like Alan Hutton, eh? Mind him. Every time he ran forward, he just got fouled.
Yeah.
Aye.
And it's a wee bit like that.
Right, StatsBomb has deep progressions as passes, dribbles, and carries into the opposition final third per 90 minutes.
Right. So that's where he needs to get better, according to these stats.
So in the final third. But then I suppose if he's a fullback, are you expecting him to be in the final third that much? Or would he be getting rid of the ball before he gets there? So there's maybe a reason tactically why that's low.
But it's not low. It's just below average. It's the only one that is though. Like it's the average is 4.7. He's 4.34. So it's like ball hair stuff. But it is the only one that's actually either. There's a couple I think that are bang on the same on the average, and that's the only one that's below average. But fullback's job now is to get forward though. So you would want it at least on the average. I would have thought. But fuck knows, eh? Who say? I mean, don't know. It's just it is interesting. We've spent about 15-20 minutes on it. It obviously is interesting, right? And there's questions to be asked on it. I think we're trying to find that comfort point almost of what we're talking about with what your eyes see and what the stats are telling you, because there are parts there where I'm like, that just doesn't sound right to me, based on like his dribbling and his ability to try and get past the man. But the stats wouldn't seem to suggest that that's the case.
I'll tell you what, I would reassure everybody who's listening that we're not going to turn into a podcast that's pulling these stats up every week and sort of saying, oh, here, kind of on a Sunday morning, we're going, Joe, I thought he played well, but actually the stats tell us that blah, blah, blah. So, because already, I don't know if this comes across in the camera, but my ear's bleeding. I've got blood coming from here, trying to make sense of these ones. So, fuck doing that regularly. Will we move on to safe standing? Or were you want to jump in there with something, John?
I was sorry, Colin, you go.
No, I was just going to say I don't know if I answered the question about him getting sold on for big money. I think we might. I don't think he will. I think he might move on, but I don't think we're going to be sitting on the end of a $5 million bid or anything daft like that. Like,
why would he not go for similar money to Josh Doig? Young player. I think he's got loads of attributes that Doig has got, and I think his performance at first team is as good as Josh Doig was shown. Why would he not go for similar money?
I don't think he's as good as Doig. He's 23 as well. Doig's a bit younger as well, but
I suppose.
So I can't see him going to. It depends on the style of play in the league, I guess. Like I don't know if would he fit the Italian league, if that's what we're.
I think he'd fit the English league because he's power and he's quick. You know, I think that's.
Or something.
But Championship definitely. But I think he could. But I think if he continues to develop, he could play in the Premier League. That's my view on it.
Giving it his deep progression's a bit better, mate.
John, you look like you were going to say something.
I was going to say, as much as we're talking about stats being ear bleeding and what have you, that there are definitely going to be people who listen that will enjoy it, not necessarily our commentary of it, but might even be able to offer us some insight on what they actually mean.
Be like, what are the Daft Guns talking
I
about?
know, if I just
Listen to
fast
them.
forwarded it like already.
Fucking idiots.
Or genetic cancel subscriptions. No, I didn't cancel. We're sorry. We're trying it. We're trying something new. I think there's a place for stats. Like I can't be joke about it, but I didn't really mind. I like I say, I like the fact that they either back up or dismiss what you think, and it gives you that sort of talking point for it.
See when they
Anyway,
dismiss though. You go and find stats that fit your argument. That's what happens. That's what everybody
yeah,
does on the message boards and that as well. See if you get one that doesn't back up your opinion, you just ignore it. That's what folk
aye,
do.
yeah.
So you didn't get one that dismisses your opinion. You just go, no, using that in.
You
Here's
do
the one that I
feel
believe.
we're objective though. Like if
I
we get
know.
to, we're quite happy to go and say, all right, fair enough, maybe we were wrong. That's
Agreed.
all right. I didn't mind that.
How long do you think it'll be before you see OBV being used in an online argument to prove or disprove a point?
I'll never do it. I'll say that now. I will commit to never doing it, and I might. Like,
And it's a competitor to our partner's rum as well. So I think we shouldn't be
exactly. Aye.
getting involved with it.
Right. Safe standing, Colin. What are your thoughts on that? There was a survey that Hibs have been putting out, or a consultation to see whether or not the famous 5 lower could be converted to safe standing.
Why not? I'm not. I don't have kids that sit in that stand anymore, so I'm fine. Do it. Why not? As long as they've got to get. Thing is, when they've done the trials with the, and I know it wasn't safe standing officially, but everybody was standing. It didn't. They didn't sell it out. It wasn't sold out. It was just a wee bit. But I guess the idea would be to grow it, and it would gather other options. Maybe the folk that stand in the east will go and stand there. I reckon the next complaint would be, I don't know what to stand behind the goals though. What to stand? Can we make it safe standing in the east as well?
Aye.
Because folk more about being behind the goals.
What
But
would you make
I've
it,
no
John?
problem with it.
I'm supportive of it. I like the idea of safe standing. I was going to ask you why you thought that the famous 5 lower tier seemed to be the one that folk were kind of hankering for almost. There seems to be a real attraction to putting the safe standing there as opposed to any other area of the ground. Is that because it's maybe there's the least amount of disruption there because it's maybe the least populated part of the ground, or is there another reason?
I think
It's
it's the way
just
they
a
want to
traditional thing.
move the singing section there. Like Block 7 are wanting to go there. And I seem to remember reading it in the survey that it referenced it, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've just
But
sort of assumed that that's where it was.
no, it is. But I think is that not where a lot of teams, if they've got singing sections or they've got the maybe then they designate as a singing section. Look at Crystal Palace and all that. They just go. That's where they go. You go behind the goals and you sing, and you have and then when it creates like their goalie gets more abuse, and then you're dragging the team towards you, sort of thing. The second half, and it looks better in the telly. That's another reason.
Aye.
But I think that's the. I think I said tradition there a minute ago, but it's not tradition. It's more. It's just more what these kind of like the German teams and all that do it. That's where they are behind the goals.
Would you
Like a
partake
culture. A
in it,
culture. That's all.
John?
In theory, yes. I like the idea of safe standing. I like because I think I quite enjoy going to some of the older grounds, and so when I spent probably the most amount of time, maybe even though the most amount of time now that I think about it, but I spent a good number of years in the old East Stand, like on the benches that they built on top of like the concrete steps, that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So I got a lot of fond memories of that. So I want to try and recapture that, but like basically midlife crisis, try to recapture my youth. So like going to places like Capello, for example, where you've got like the exposed stand behind the goal, ironically, where they've got like the benches. That's really good. I really enjoy that. What I don't like the idea of is something that Colin referenced there, because I've experienced it in Germany. Behind the goals, first and foremost, I go to the football to watch the football. I don't go to be part of like a display or a tifo or whatever. And see, trying to watch the football while some bastard's got a flag waving in your face, it's a pain in the arse. But that's probably
Aye.
reflective of my age. If I'd been, say, like 20, 25 when I was going through that period when I was in the Old East, that would have been like perfect for me. I would have loved it.
I can see the merits in it. I don't know why they call it safe. Why they just call it standing? Like I think, like it's safe to stand at the Fibber. I think when you think how all seater stadiums came out in the back of Hillsborough in the Taylor report, it wasn't the standing that was the problem. It was the fact that they had big fucking fences. Like the kind of pen folk in.
Yep.
You've not got the big fences these days. The stadium's like a well designed stand you could have. Just standing. I think I might have to label it safe standing. Just got fucking standing.
It's weird that I do look at that. Yeah,
because you're not going to have the crushes. Because if there was a the danger of a crush in that section, A, you would care how many folk were in, and B, you can just go over the front of the pitch or the track, and they can get folk out. It's not like in the it was Hillsborough late 80s, early 90s when that happened. So I think stadiums are set up for it now. There's no real reason from a safety perspective not to do it. And it comes down to experience. And I think if enough folk go to it and it works, then I may power them. It wouldn't be me up to opt for it now. Like I like football.
Is the difference now, or I wonder how much difference it makes, like the footprint of the stadium. So say Easter Road, for example, like the old East Stand and how they talked about like the terrace and going like way up. You don't have that anymore. So like the stadiums are a lot steeper. So in terms of like standing and the way that crowds used to move when a goal was scored, that's just not feasible in current football stadia.
Nah.
So I wonder if that's why they have to call it safe standing, like to prevent any of like. So if you were, say, the lower tier at Easter Road, the famous 5 at Easter Road, you've got like steps that take you up. Like you can't imagine like tumbling down that or there being a surge in the crowd without falling over and breaking your leg or killing someone in front of you, for example. So that's maybe why. Because in my head, the safe standing, it's kind of like a barrier, isn't it? Like per seat.
It's like they're almost seats that convert to a standing bit, isn't it? Something like that is the way that they do it. But
I think there's maybe another argument as well, because it almost, I think you could have, because I think, is there a UEFA requirement for there to be all seated stadiums? So the safe standing, you could have it for domestic fixtures, but for European games, you would put the seat down, but everyone knows you would probably stand to that anyway.
Be something along those lines, I would think, John. So I would say we're broadly in favour of it then.
Yeah.
Instead of it in the West Upper, please.
It's just a choice, eh? It wouldn't be up there. Everywhere else, it wouldn't be the East, like for the, because that is an accident waiting to happen. See if you ever score a goal late on in a game, because there's queues to get out for about 5 minutes to go on the stairs. If we score a goal in a last minute goal, that could be quite dangerous over there.
I've just realised that you two, because of your comments before about where you sit, are you Hibs NIMBYs with regards to safe standing?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, although, like, I'd rather not move. I like where my seat is, but if I had to move to avoid it, it wouldn't be the end of the world. It's like the folk in the famous 5 lower who have had this. I mean, and you can imagine them going, "I've sat here for fucking years. Why am I getting turfed out my seat so some kids can come and jump about?" You can see why they would be against it, but like if that's where the club decided they were going to do it and it was for the greater goods, I'd just move seat. There's plenty of good seats in the stadium that you can move across there. So technically a NIMBY, but if push came to shove, no, John. If it had to happen, I would put up with it. Like when they're going to have to extend the stadium when Bill Foley puts his billions in, and we're going to have to build a third tier on the west. There's going to be some disruption to our seats then, and we'll have to move for a wee bit. So. Yeah. It's for the greater good. I'll maybe move to the top tier. The club.
Do you think with the amount of money that he's got and the plans that you're proposing for the West and putting a third tier on, do you think there's enough money in the world to give everyone that sits up there their own personal lift for the top tier down to the ground level?
How I would get around that, John, is have fireman's poles at the back. So at the top of the stand,
we shoot like the old comic book,
like a helter skelter. You could have that like on a wee map. So you pick up your doormat at the end of the game and then just slide down, reboot at night time.
If Hibs had a bad defeat, there'd be folk chucking their doormats onto the pitch.
I used to
not coming back.
I used to have when I worked for HSBC, one of my best mates, he was like a building maintenance manager, and I used to email him asking for things like a bat pole to get out of the building quicker and things like that, kind of a better view and all that sort of things. Anyway, right, Melkersen. Montgomery's been talking about him coming back, said that there's a place for him. The Norwegian club are interested in keeping him, but it looks like Hibs are going to bring him back from loan and then play him. A good thing, John?
I think so, yeah. I think So I mentioned that in one of the podcasts recently when I think it was maybe the Aberdeen game where I said that we started off with what looked like our strongest 11, but there wasn't really a hell of a lot to choose from the bench with regards to like changing attacking options. And I think that Melkersen would help provide that. So, and I also think that with someone like Tavares being at the picture and having come back in and had a good couple of games under his belt, he's starting to gain the support of the fans. I think there's an opportunity there for Melkersen to come in and capitalise on something like that as well.
Colin, the fact that we're playing with two strikers now, do you think that's going to benefit Melkersen? Because he seemed to be played out wide a lot of the time by Lee Johnson and Sean Maloney before him.
It'd be interesting to see how he gets on. See if this is what the Norwegian club wanted to keep him. Were they going to pay money for him? Or
I think so. I think they wanted to sign him, and it would cost the Hibs. I don't imagine Hibs would give him away for nothing.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have been tempted to take that, but I suppose it would be harsh to not give him. Well, he's had a chance, but another chance under a different manager and a different formation might help him.
I think that's one of those variables that the club in Montgomery need to consider with regards to. So I think in the press recently, Montgomery was quoted as saying that there's no money, there's no budget there for new players. Like players will have to be moved on, and I know that that's kind of roughly the same sort of thing that we hear every season. But so thinking about the variable about Melkersen looking at Tavares and saying, "Oh, I've got an opportunity at Hibs to come back in and make an impression." There's also that opportunity for Hibs to say, "Actually, we could do with the money to try and do something else with the squad."
I think if Hibs are going to cash in, it'll be elsewhere. That's my gut feeling. I think because he's a young player, and Montgomery. I don't know if you listened to the Inside Training podcast with Raimondo through the week. They're all about the young players and developing them and giving them a chance. I think they would be desperate to get their hands on them. Like there's a boy signed with tons of potential that hasn't clicked at Hibs yet. And I think if I was Montgomery and Raimondo, I'd be looking at him going, I can get him in the club. Let's see what we can do with this boy and play him.
It's so frustrating though because you look at that Motherwell game, and I think there was a glimpse of it as well in the cup game against Clyde. I think it was one of Lee Johnson's first games where he's had 2 goals against Motherwell that were like all the hallmarks of a really good striker. He's had his goal against Clyde, and then everything else that I think that's been going on at the club around about him has impacted upon that a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I think there was an opportunity against Dundee United that he's put over the bar from close range that he really should have scored.
Yeah.
But there's definitely an opportunity. There's definitely a player within him, and hopefully with a bit more stability and a bit more of that emphasis on developing players that seems to be coming through from Montgomery and Raimondo, that's going to work. And I think I do think that Hibs need that additional striker there, that additional option to try and change things, especially when you take into account comments like maximum effort for 70 minutes, then we'll look to make changes where needed.
Aye. It's interesting. Anyway, we're kind of out of time. Just wanted to mention that I saw a thread on Hibs and a few comments on Twitter earlier about Celtic charging Hibs fans £36. But then I think that's what we charge for the Category A team. It's fucking mental. Because I was away to jump onto Twitter to start slaughtering Celtic for it and saying, they're a team that didn't need the money, and that's a disgrace. And I thought, actually, I'll go and check how much a Category A game is at Easter Road. I think it's about the same. So clubs need to sort that out. That's too much money.
That's far too much. I thought it was 33, which is still too much, really. But I didn't realise it crept up again. That's outrageous, really.
I haven't fact checked it, I have to be honest, but that was going to be the thread on.
Anything over 30 quid's too dear. I mean, and whether it's 33, 36, 35 or whatever, it's too much.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. Anyway, right, that's us out of time. Thanks very much for subscribing. If you're a Hubwave subscriber and you want to listen on Spotify, you can now do that if you move over to Patreon. We have got a subscription available on there. It's dead easy to sign up, but you can get the Extra Time podcast on Spotify as well. It's something that we get asked about quite a lot. So just a wee FYI there. Thanks very much for subscribing. Thanks for listening to us trying to get our head around stats and that. We might not try that again. We'll see. And we will see you next time.
till they trailed me down. When I broke free, I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.